Behind all the razzle-dazzle is a true story. Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 facts Fosse Verdon got right. For this list, we're taking a look at plot points and details from this Emmy-winning limited series that are true to the real lives of Bob Fosse and Gwen Verdon. Number 10. Bob's backstage encounter. While the miniseries only touches upon Fosse's youth in a few brief flashbacks, it's made clear that whatever childhood he had was cut short.
When I was a kid, 13, I used to play the burlesque houses in Chicago. Me and my pal Charlie, we had a dance act. And a couple of the striptease girls from one of the clubs, they took a liking to me.
Nowhere is this more apparent than when a 13-year-old Fosse is molested in a burlesque club by multiple exotic dancers. According to the biography Fosse by Sam Wasson, which this series is based on, Fosse was indeed abused by dancers at the burlesque club he worked at.
And one night I was just sitting there, I was minding my own business, when they started conversing with me. One thing led to another.
In a Rolling Stone interview, Fosse recounted, quote, "It gave me an edge. I had mixed feelings about it though. I was very excited, but I wasn't ready for sex."
I always find that story a salutary reminder of just how f***ing unjust the world is. What did you ever do to deserve that?
Some people have all the luck.
Well into his adulthood, Fosse struggled with commitment and relationships in general. Some would cite this early encounter as the root of these lifelong issues.
And he doesn't want to hear your complaints, or your concerns, or your whining, because he's doing it for his art. Because he's weak, because he just can't help himself, because he wants to be free.
Number 9. Bob went to the Payne Whitney Psychiatric Clinic. On the surface, 1973 seemed like a phenomenal year for Fosse. He went down as the first and only person to win at the Oscars, Emmys, and Tonys in the span of 1 year.
The Tony for Best Director of a Musical goes to Bob Fosse for Pippin.
Even with all of his professional success, though, the director-choreographer couldn't find satisfaction and became overwhelmed with suicidal thoughts.
You got everything you want, and it still isn't enough.
It'll never be enough.
Tell him, Patty.
Fosse reportedly suffered from imposter syndrome, which is when someone begins to question their accomplishments and fear that they may be seen as a fraud. Of course, this term didn't exist yet in 1973. As explored in the miniseries, Fosse checked into New York's Payne Whitney Psychiatric Clinic following a nervous breakdown. His stay was short-lived, however, as he'd soon be juggling directorial duties for 2 highly demanding productions.
We're so happy to see you, Bob. We're so happy to see you, aren't we, darling? Yes, that's right, we are, till then.
Number 8. Verdon wanted to do Chicago. Chicago is arguably the most famous show Fosse brought to Broadway, but the miniseries reveals that it likely wouldn't have come together without Verdon.
Well, I just got back from dinner with Bob, and we talked for 2.5 hours straight about Chicago, and I couldn't get him to say a word about anything else.
Actually, the same can be said about many of Fosse's endeavors. It was Verdon who discovered the original 1926 play and suggested to Fosse that they adapt it into a musical.
So what about Chicago?
Well, we may have to push that a bit.
Wait a minute, you're doing Chicago now?
Well, we've been talking about doing Chicago for the last decade, but now we finally have the rights.
Playwright Maureen Dallas Watkins repeatedly refused to sign off on the project, but Fosse, Verdon, and producer Richard Fryer secured the rights following her death in 1969. Even as Fosse's profile raised and his priorities shifted, Verdon remained adamant about getting Chicago off the ground.
I'm going to do Chicago, with or without you.
Ultimately, Fosse decided to work on Chicago and his Lenny Bruce biopic at the same time, providing the basis for the semi-autobiographical All That Jazz.
So it's Chicago over Lenny after all, huh?
Which one comes first?
Neither. We do them at the same time.
Number 7. Fosse's self-destructive behavior. Some celebrities do everything in their power to conceal their true nature from the public. In the film All That Jazz, though, Fosse put many of his inner demons on the screen for audiences to witness.
I not only understood, I was flattered. I was flattered that she felt so strongly about me.
How did you know the note was to you?
We're given an even more in-depth look at Fosse's erratic, reckless tendencies in this miniseries. Fosse is shown to be a workaholic who seemingly can't go a second without a cigarette.
You know, it's pretty lousy of you. I have a heart attack and you upstage me by having your own heart attack.
Fosse was even more addicted to sex, having more than one extramarital affair. While Fosse isn't without loved ones, he frequently finds new ways to alienate and disappoint them. The series is fair in its portrayal of Fosse, depicting him as a deeply flawed man who nevertheless wanted to do right by his family and tried the best he could.
911, what is your emergency?
Was the best to come along in a long
Number 6. Verdon took a bow in a towel. Although Gwen Verdon never got as much credit as her husband, she was still among the most revered Broadway actresses of her generation. This is demonstrated through a scene where Verdon is changing during a performance of Can-Can. To her shock, Verdon is called back to the stage with only enough time to wrap herself in a towel.
Come with me.
But I don't have any clothes on.
Take this.
The crowd is going so wild for Verdon that she takes a bow in the midst of the show. It's the kind of moment that every performer dreams of, which may lead some viewers to believe that it's pure fantasy. In reality, Verdon really did receive a 7-minute standing ovation, prompting her to bow in a towel. It's no wonder why this role won her a Tony. Number 5. Verdon and Reineking's dynamic. It's no secret that Fosse was romantically involved with actress-dancer Anne Reinking from 1972 to 1978. Watching the miniseries, though, viewers may be surprised to learn that Fosse's longtime girlfriend got along quite well with Verdon.
It's stupid, but I wanted to be perfect, and I don't want her to hate me.
While she was still legally married to Fosse, Verdon came to view Reinking as a friend, rather than her husband's mistress. Reinking also developed a close bond with Fosse and Verdon's daughter, Nicole, which essentially made her part of the family.
Will you do my hair, Annie?
Did you? What, did I?
Well, I didn't know if you wanted to do her hair.
Oh no, oh please. Somebody else can take care of these tangles, huh?
Even after Fosse passed away, Reinking remained on good terms with Verdon. As a matter of fact, Reinking was largely responsible for reviving Chicago in 1996. The revival was met with overwhelming approval from Verdon, who later collaborated with Reinking on the 1999 musical Fosse.
I owe you an apology. About last night, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said what I said.
Number 4. Verdon wanted Nowadays to be a solo. Nowadays is one of the most famous duets in all of musical theater, leaving Chicago on a high note.
In 50 years or so, it's gonna change, you know. But oh, it's heaven nowadays.
Believe it or not, Verdon originally envisioned the number as a solo for her character Roxy Hart. Fosse objected to the show's ending, insisting that Verdon share the number with actress Cheetah Rivera, who played Velma Kelly.
We wrote the song for Roxy, Bobby. It's her show, and
No, actually-
she's earned the right to finish it.
John, it's not her show, it's their show.
According to Wasson, Verdon actually told Fosse, "I want this song." In the miniseries, Fosse's motivations for changing the number are left up for interpretation. You could argue that Fosse wanted to hurt Verdon, but it's also possible that he genuinely felt a duet would work better. In any case, there was definitely tension between the two throughout the production of Chicago, and Fosse ultimately got his way with Nowadays. Number 3. Fosse and Verdon never divorced. We've all heard the phrase, celebrity marriages don't last. On one hand, Fosse and Verdon were no different. On the other hand, they were a rare exception. As the miniseries shows us, their marriage was beyond repair after Fosse cheated on Verdon during the production of Cabaret.
I have a boyfriend.
I won't hold it against you.
And you're married.
The two separated in 1971, and while they never got back together, they never legally divorced either. Following the separation, the two continued to raise their daughter together and would collaborate on several projects.
How many times have I lied to you? How many times have I stood there and I promised it's the last time? I don't want to lie to you anymore. I don't want to sneak around.
In 1981, Verdon described Fosse as, quote, "the best friend I've got." Even when they started dating different people, there seemed to be an understanding that Fosse and Verdon would remain husband and wife. The marriage didn't technically end until 1987, when Fosse passed away. Number 2. The Gorilla Mask. Even the most outlandish storyline in Fosse Verdon is, bizarrely enough, fairly spot on. In the first episode, Verdon flies to Germany to help Fosse on Cabaret. Verdon has to fly all the way back to New York, however, to pick up a gorilla mask for the If You Could See Her number. Fosse refuses to settle for Germany's only gorilla suit.
The number shoots in 3 days.
That's plenty of time.
Oh, so someone's gonna fly to New York, find a gorilla suit, and then immediately fly back to Munich in 72 hours?
I'll do it.
When Verdon returns with the gorilla head, she finds her husband in bed with a German interpreter.
Hello?
Gorilla delivery.
Although this remains mostly true to life, the miniseries changes one detail. Fosse was actually fooling around with a couple of German girls, according to Wasson's biography. While a divorce didn't ensue, this was the straw that broke the, well, gorilla's back.
Every marriage goes through rough patches. Not yours. I threw a frozen veal chop at Neil's head last week.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Verdon was with Fosse in the end. From the first episode, Fosse is like a ticking time bomb. The audience knows that his days are numbered and the clock runs out on September 23, 1987.
You're a little early. It isn't time yet.
Given Fosse's lifetime of addictions, it's not surprising that he died at age 60. What is surprising is that Verdon was present for her husband's fatal heart attack.
Something's wrong.
Yep, that's okay. You're having a seizure, okay? It's okay. Somebody call an ambulance, please. He's an epileptic.
Just like in the miniseries, Fosse collapsed in Verdon's arms on their way to a sweet charity revival. They never made it into the National Theater, as Fosse fell on the sidewalk near the Willard Hotel.
They'll hold the curtain as long as they need to. Nobody's starting anything without you. Don't want you worrying about that right now, and we'll get there when we get there.
Fosse was taken to George Washington University Hospital, but the doctors couldn't revive him. While the trip to the hospital is omitted from the miniseries, Verdon was by Fosse's side until the end.
Let's go. It's time.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from MsMojo. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.